A square peg does not fit in a round hole. We've all heard this saying 1,000 times, and oftentimes we think, it's the peg that doesn't fit. But what if we turn the saying on its head and look at it from a different perspective? What if it's the hole that is in the wrong here? I think this actually happens quite a bit. So in light of recent events, let's go ahead and take a look at how important situation is for quarterback development on today's episode of Water Cooler Quarterback.
Miraculous! It's Murray magic!
I say in light of recent events because, of course, we had the benching of second-year quarterback Bryce Young heading into Week 3. And while that itself is kind of old news at this point, I think it's worth diving into this topic a little bit further. For years, we've known that getting drafted first, second, or third overall means you're probably not going to a great team, or at least you're going to a team that had to sell the farm to get in such a prime position to draft you in the first place. Either way, you're not exactly going to a place with a great infrastructure around you. And that was very much the case for Bryce Young. And despite having an owner who's notoriously trigger-happy, a coaching staff in his first year that rumor has it didn't even want him, they wanted CJ Stroud instead, I still have faith in Bryce Young. Why? Well, let's go ahead and get into it. I want to start off in Miami, talking about Tua Tagovailoa, a quarterback who in 2020 was drafted 5th overall, one pick ahead of Justin Herbert. And while Justin Herbert was off in LA winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, Tua was struggling. See, at the time, the Dolphins were under head coach Brian Flores, who, in not so many words, told Tua and the whole world exactly how he felt about him. Tua was routinely in and out of the lineup throughout the 2020 season. He sometimes started, sometimes didn't. It was kind of a what is going on here in Miami between Tua and journeyman quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick. And with a head coach who blatantly doesn't like you, it made it pretty hard for Tua to develop some confidence. Fast forward through a few lawsuits, Bill Belichick text messages, and Tom Brady tamperings, the Dolphins found themselves with a new head coach, Mike McDaniel, a guy who clearly from day one was open to throwing his arms around Tua and embracing everything about the young quarterback. See, where Tua's previous head coach, Brian Flores, would punish Tua's lackings, Mike McDaniel celebrated the things that made Tua great. And that is what Tua needed at the time. And wouldn't you know it, with a head coach who actually believes in him, Tua has flourished. Now, it helps adding guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but a good organization surrounds their quarterback with what he needs to succeed. And I don't think a guy like Tyreek Hill ends up in Miami without Mike McDaniel there. The impact that having a positive head coach had on Tua is best summed up by Tua himself. Take a listen to how he answers a question in an interview where he was asked straight up directly about the coaching differences between Brian Flores and Mike McDaniel.
To put it in simplest terms, if you woke up every morning and I told you you sucked at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, you are accurate, you are the best whatever, you are this, you are that. Like, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? You see what I'm saying? You have a terrible person that's telling you things that you don't want to hear, or that you probably shouldn't be hearing. You're going to start to believe that about yourself.
I mean, I couldn't have said it much better myself. I think that about sums it up. You need a head coach, or a GM for that matter, in your corner. Someone that's going to back you up and be on your team. And if you don't, you're far more likely to fail. Now, I throw the GM into that sentiment as well, because I have seen, as a Cardinals fan, the damage that having a bad GM can do to your young quarterback. And believe me, it's just as bad as having a bad head coach. From the moment he was drafted to the moment his GM got replaced, Kyler Murray was the scapegoat of the Arizona Cardinals. Virtually every chance that general manager Steve Keim got, he made sure everyone knew that the Cardinals' failures were because of Murray. And you know what? At the time, maybe some of it was warranted, but that's the type of stuff that has to be handled behind closed doors. Putting things like a study clause in his contract not only embarrasses Murray, but also makes it clear that the organization doesn't believe in him. It gives them some CYA of saying, hey, look, we were prepared for this. If you're not doing your job, that's on you. That's just not the way that you should be as a general manager to your franchise quarterback. There should be a team dynamic to that, not an adversarial one. Now with Keim gone and a new regime in Arizona, we're seeing a more cool, calm, and collected Kyler Murray. He's no longer cussing out his head coach on the sidelines. He's matured greatly, I would say, in the last year and a half or two. And I think a lot of the reason that he's been able to mature and been able to be more comfortable and relaxed is because he knows a bad game is not going to call his position on the team into question. The team's not going to lose faith in him after a bad performance, and that makes all the difference. Previously, after a bad game or loss, Kyler was honestly like a cornered animal. He was defending himself any way he knew how, lashing out, doing whatever he could to make sure people knew that he's doing everything he can because he had an organization that was throwing him under the bus. That's no longer the case, and he's able to take each game as, hey, you know what? I didn't play great, but we're moving on. And that is what you want out of the organization-quarterback relationship. You want your organization to make sure the quarterback knows, hey, we've still got you. That game wasn't great. It's fine. Let's move on. We're not talking about drafting a quarterback. We're not talking about trading for someone. It's all good. Let's move on. Knowing that mistakes are not going to cost you your job lets you play a little more free, a little more loose, and a little bit more fun. There's plenty of other guys as well where the situation clearly was just not right for them initially, and now that they've got a new situation, they are flourishing. Guys like Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was treated like dirt in Cleveland. They said that they wanted an adult in the QB room as opposed to whatever they considered Baker. They traded the farm in what is now clearly one of the worst trades in NFL history for a guy that had 24 civil lawsuits against him just to get Baker out of town. Jacoby Brissett even went so far as to say it's nice to be part of an all-black quarterback room in Cleveland.
It's my first time ever been in an all-black quarterback room.
Jacoby. Baker is still on the team at the time of this interview. And don't even get me started on OBJ's dad, okay? That whole situation is crazy as well. Now, a few teams later, following up Tom Brady's Super Bowl run in Tampa Bay, Baker is doing great. He's playing lights out, leading the NFC South at the moment, and he's been playing phenomenal football. It took a couple of steps. It took a couple of teams from Cleveland to Carolina, a short stop in LA with the Rams, and now he finds himself in Tampa. And look at him. He's playing great football. Certainly better than Deshaun is in Cleveland. And I wonder why that is. Maybe because Tampa embraced Baker and believed in him, something that Cleveland never did. Derek Carr is another example of this. He played great football for the Raiders for a while. And then on Christmas is shown the door. All relationships are broken down. Carr cited that they made his wife cry at a certain point. It was clear that that relationship was broken beyond repair. He goes down to New Orleans. Look at him now, playing great. Look at Jared Goff. He took the Rams to the Super Bowl, but apparently that wasn't good enough. They had to trade him away in favor of Matt Stafford. But I tell you what, Dan Campbell's pretty happy to have Jared Goff.
Okay, I'll just say it like this, all right? Hey, you're good enough for Detroit, Jared.
And yeah, Geno Smith became a little bit of a meme for his post-game comments after beating the Broncos in Week 1 a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they wrote me off. I ain't right back, though.
But I think it's a perfect sentiment. These guys get written off, and all they really need is a proper chance, a proper opportunity in a scenario that is embracing them. And that brings us to 2024, where we're seeing even more instances of this. And I love it. It makes me so happy when these quarterbacks that get tossed aside are given new life on new teams or with new coaches, and they get their opportunity again and show everybody what they've got. The first being Malik Willis. Packers fans saw their season end at the end of Week 1. For all intents and purposes, we all thought that the Packers were done for as soon as Jordan Love went down on the turf in Brazil. We thought, that's a season-ending injury, he's done, and thankfully, that's not the case. But with Malik Willis coming in, a guy that the Packers traded for just a month prior, we were all kind of like, let's just hope they can win a game. Let's hope Malik Willis isn't completely terrible. And what does Willis do? He comes in and wins 2 games, wins both of his starts for the Packers. This is yet another example of a young quarterback in need of some development not being given the time of day by his own team. Ryan Tannehill, the vet quarterback that was in Tennessee with Malik Willis at the time that he was drafted, famously said,
"We're competing against each other. We're watching the same tape. We're doing the same drills. I don't think it's my job to mentor him. I don't think it's my job to mentor him. I don't think it's my job to mentor him.
Bro, yes it is. Like, what are you talking about? Tannehill, did you come into this league and just immediately know exactly what you were doing? You didn't have any help from anybody? Somebody who's been in the league for a while and showed you the ropes, taught you how to read a defense, taught you how to be, study film, be a good quarterback in all your meetings and everything? You didn't have somebody like that? Yes, you did. Every quarterback does. So the fact that you don't want to help Malik Willis, that's ridiculous. But I gotta cut Ryan Tannehill a little bit of slack because he's not the only part of the Titans that didn't believe in Malik Willis. The whole team apparently didn't. He only started a handful of games for them, and admittedly, it didn't go very well. He only started 3 games for them, and in that time, he amassed less than 300 passing yards, no touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Yeah, that's not great, but you also have to give this guy time to develop. And with the playoffs on the line at the end of the season, the Titans turned to Josh Dobbs rather than the guy that they spent draft capital on in the draft, Malik Willis. They said, you know what? Yeah, we drafted you, but we don't like you. We're going to go with somebody else, a different backup other than you. What is that going to do to the young guy's confidence? Meanwhile, through his 2 weeks as the starter for the Green Bay Packers, he had 2 touchdowns, no picks, and 324 passing yards. All of which better than all of his tenure in Tennessee. And again, I reiterate, he's been there for 1 month. So why the contrast? Again, because he was given a chance. I also look at guys like Sam Darnold, another guy that's bounced around the league, from famously seeing ghosts as a New York Jet to, a hot start that didn't last long down in Carolina, a year spent under Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, now absolutely slinging it for the Minnesota Vikings with a beat-up receiving core. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, they've been in and out of the lineup, and he's still going toe-to-toe with guys like C.J. Stroud. And they don't even have T.J. Hawkinson, their star tight end, yet. Sam Darnold is killing it in the NFC North. Darnold's head coach Kevin O'Connell was recently on the Rich Eisen show where he had the following to say.
There's not enough emphasis put on the organization's role in the development of the position, meaning I do believe this, Rich. I believe that organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail organizations.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. Yes, Kevin, thank you. Organizations fail quarterbacks before quarterbacks fail organizations. Perfectly put, beautifully said, so true. Moral of the story, the point of this entire video. Thank you, Kevin. That's what I've been trying to say. And then the final guy that we're going to look at is Justin Fields, a guy that I have rooted for since the moment he was drafted in this league. Watching him fall on draft night, far beyond where he should have been taken, he was clearly the quarterback 2 all throughout the draft process, and then he slid for whatever reason. I've still got faith in this guy. Fields has had coach after coach, scheme after scheme, and was never given the proper environment to develop. The Bears tried to give him what he needed, but in my estimation, it was all window dressing rather than foundational fixes. We're seeing even Caleb Williams struggle behind an O-line that is largely the same as the one that Justin Fields had. Now, they did get Justin Fields a new receiver in DJ Moore, which is great. But as we're seeing again with Caleb Williams, I'll point to, who has an embarrassment of wide receiver talent, Wide receiver talent does not mean you're going to be a good quarterback. Even though they tried to help Justin Fields by giving him guys like DJ Moore, when they saw that didn't magically save his career, they sent him packing. Meanwhile, Fields is over in Pittsburgh, and sure, he's not lighting the world on fire with any of his play, but he's getting better and better every week, which I love to see. And I would say, even though it was the team's first loss of the year, his game against the Colts was by far the best of his season. He's playing smart, efficient, good football, and he's got the arm talent to make incredible throws to his guys like George Pickens. As badly as I wanted to see Justin Fields succeed in Chicago, there's something about him being in Pittsburgh, a Steeler, being coached by Mike Tomlin that just seems right. Mike Tomlin seems like the type of guy that if he sees potential in you, he's really going to invest in you. Kenny Pickett might have something to say about that, but I digress. Until Fields really screws up, this job is his to lose. He is the starting quarterback in Pittsburgh, and I love seeing him with a team that A, can protect him, and B, rallies around him and supports him. It's probably also worth noting that Malik Willis, Sam Darnold, Justin Fields, as well as Murray and Tua have all got head coaches, or at the very least offensive coordinators, that stem from the Shanahan coaching tree, which deserves its own video and its own whole breakdown. I don't have time for that right now, but I just thought that was worth pointing out, that all these guys have got some Shanahan in there. So what does this all mean? What is the takeaway? What is the conclusion we can draw from all of this? Well, simply put, let's not write off players just because we don't like what we see straight away. It takes time for folks to get in the groove of really anything. That extends beyond football. But here in an NFL context, sometimes it's just a matter of getting a different coach or sending the guy to a different team to see him play very well. Now, I mentioned Bryce Young at the top of this video, and while I would bet my life savings that he never sees this video, I hope he's got people in his corner relaying my sentiment here, that success takes time, and sometimes it takes a change of scenery. I sincerely hope that head coach Dave Canales can revitalize Bryce Young's career. And if he can't, I hope that Bryce ends up somewhere that believes in him, ends up on a team that thinks, you know what, even though it didn't quite click there in Carolina, we like what we see in the kid. Maybe he can come in here and provide our team a much needed spark. Hey, he was the first overall pick for a reason. Maybe he's got something there. Maybe we can work with this. We have seen countless quarterbacks improve with a new team, with a new system, and I would be hard-pressed to think that this is the last we've seen of the Heisman Trophy winner, of the national champion, Bryce Young. Well, that's all I've got for you today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the more, scripted approach that I took to it. If you did, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you enjoy football news and my ramblings about the NFL landscape. Until next time, my name is Andrew. This is Water Cooler Quarterback, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.